Everybody in from out in the rain, find a nice seat, and please join me in our call to worship. I'll read the less bold and you read the bold. God of grace, as David did for Mephibosheth, you turn our isolation to belong, inviting us just as we are.
May we put aside our fears and accept your welcome.
God of love, you call us to a table that's long and wide, with enough food for all to feast, and spaces for all kinds of people.
May we stop making excuses and join the party.
Let's continue to worship in song. Amen.
Welcome everyone. Please stand if you are able, and we will sing Here in This Place, Voices Together, number 10. Projection slides. They have the melody and they're able to project. So I figured we'd try that out, and if you can read music or just kind of half read music, you can kind of see a note is higher or lower. It can kind of give you a clue on how to sing the song. The words are really beautiful as well, so if you're not comfortable singing, you can just follow along with the words. And we'll get Janice to play it through once.
To grasp and to believe.
morning again. Sorry, I cut out the last line, which is extra embarrassing from that call to worship because I wrote it. So you would think I would remember. Good morning. Welcome here. I'm Rachel, the family pastor who can't remember her own lines. I hope you all had a good week, and before I share some announcements, I would love it if we could all just spend a couple minutes connecting with each other. So as you are comfortable, find somebody's hand to shake, high five, elbow bump, ask them how their week went, and yeah, just check in with each other. All right. I will encourage you, as usual, to read your bulletins front to back because there's so much in there. But I want to highlight a couple things. And as I'm doing that, I'll give the kids a heads up that as soon as I'm done with this list of announcements, it is children's feature time. So you'll want to start climbing those stairs. First announcement, next week is the first Sunday of Lent. And we have a little write-up by Gareth on what our Lent series looks like. So you should look at that. It also includes a couple of lectures. So check the dates on those. Secondly, I'm looking for a couple more hosts for our youth progressive dinner on March 13th. So if you're interested in hosting about 6 people for either appetizers, main course, or dessert, not all 3, come talk to me after the service or send me an email. John Knopfziger also wanted me to remind everyone that he will be selling tickets to the MCC banquet in the foyer. So there's more info in the bulletin about that, or you can talk to him after the service. Also, you may notice that some things in today's service are a little different. There will be some videos. People will be speaking from all different parts of the sanctuary. And most importantly, we have swapped out a sermon for some wonderful stories. I'm excited to hear from, 3 different stories. So that will be cool. Now I'll welcome up our kids and Cyndy for our children's feature.
Okay, everybody come on down. I love today's story, and as I was studying it and practicing the name over and over and over again, I had to practice that name because that's not an easy name. But anyways, last Saturday, not yesterday, the week before, the church passed a little statement about what kind of a church we want to be and work towards, and one of them statements was about being inclusive. And then I read the story about David and Mephibosheth. And then I thought, how am I going to do this children's story? What do I say? And then I pulled on my teacher hat because that's what I do. I teach kindergarten. And I thought, let's go on a field trip. Are you ready? We're going on a field trip. Come on down with me. Going on a field trip. I didn't even get parent permission. we are going to go here. We are going to do children's feature from here. Now, these people don't usually get to see the story, and they don't usually get to see you right nice and close. So we're going to do it from here. Would you hold my book, please? Thank you. The Peace Bible. I'm going to turn my chair so I can face these very important people. And the rest of you can listen to the story. But here we go. All right. Where's Teo? There he is. Okay. You're going to sit. Where are you going to sit? There? All right. Gemma has also practiced the name. So we're going to try it together. There's 3 kind of people that you need to know. King David. Have you ever heard of King David before? Have you heard of King David before? Yeah. Okay. Do you know who David's best friend was? Nope. Let's see if these other people at our table know, or at our... Jonathan, thank you. See, she's pretty smart. Jonathan was David's best friend. Do you know who Jonathan's dad was? Oh, yeah, that's okay. Yes. Okay, way to go. I have that kind of person in my class, too. King Saul, yes. King Saul was Jonathan's dad, and Jonathan and David were best friends. King Saul used to be king, but now it's King David. And Jonathan tragically died early. So David doesn't have his best friend anymore. But here's the story of David and Mephibosheth. Ready? Okay, ready?
When David was a boy, the prophet Samuel had anointed him as the future king. When he was 30 years old, the leaders of Israel came together and said to him, "In the past, Saul was our king, but God chose you to be shepherd and ruler for us." They anointed David, and he served as king over Israel for 40 years. He treated people with fairness and justice. One day, King David asked his servant, "Is there anyone from King Saul's family who is still alive? His son Jonathan was my friend, and I want to do something kind for his family." Ziba, a servant from the house of Saul, was called. He said, "Jonathan's son, Mephibosheth, is still alive. When he was 5 years old, both of his feet were badly injured. Even now, as an adult, he could not walk. David sent for him. Mephibosheth threw himself on his face in front of David. David said, "Don't be afraid. Your father and I were close friends, so I will be kind to you. I will give your grandfather Saul's land, and you will eat from my table from now on." Mephibosheth said, "Why do you care about me? I'm no good. I'm nothing but a dead dog." But David did care. He called for Ziba and said, "I am giving Saul's land back to Mephibosheth. Work the land for him, and bring in the crops so that his family and servants will have food. As for Mephibosheth, he will always eat with me." From then on, Mephibosheth came to live in Jerusalem. He ate at David's table, just like one of David's sons. And Mephibosheth had a young son of his own named Micah.
Okay, now I have very good reading, Gemma, to show the picture, because that's part of why I'm here, so that you, too, can see the picture of David and Mephibosheth and Mephibosheth's young son. So there you go. Thank you for sharing your space with us. We appreciate it. All right. Thank you. All right.
Okay, in response to that story that we just heard, we're going to sing a song about Big House. This is an old CCM song from Audio Adrenaline from the 90s. I don't know if anyone who did youth ministry in the 1990s recognizes it. And it's, I read the story of Bibasheth, talking about, well, just the picture that we've seen on the screen, sharing a table with lots and lots of food. So that's part of this song. So, the words will be on the screen if you feel like singing along. It's a fairly simple melody on the chorus. Very catchy. It's an earworm, so it's one of those ones that'll be stuck in your head all day.
And please feel free to stand and do actions.
Yes, yeah. I don't know where you lay your head, or where you call your home. I don't know where you eat your meals, or where you talk on the phone. I don't know if you gotta cook without their own way. I don't know if you got a yard with a hammock in the shade. I don't know if you got some shelter or say a place to hide. I don't know if you live with friends and whom you can confide. I don't know if you got a family, say your mom or dad. I don't know if you feel love at all, but I bet you wish you had. Come and go with me to my father's house. Come and go with me to my father's house. It's a big, big house with lots and lots of rooms. Big, big table with lots and lots of food. It's a big, big yard where we can play football. It's a big, big house. It's my father's house. All I know is a big old house with rooms for everyone. All I know is lots of land where we can play and run. All I know is you need love and I've got a family. All I know is you're all alone, so why not come with me? Come and go with me to my father's house. Come and go with me to my father's house. Big, big house with lots and lots of rooms. Big, big table with lots and lots of food. It's a big, big yard where we can play football. It's a big, big house. It's my father's house. It's a big, big house with lots and lots of room. It's a big, big table with lots and lots of food. It's a big, big yard where we can play football. It's a big, big house. It's my father's house. Awesome. Thank you for singing. There's even a football reference in there for all you Super Bowl fans. So there you go. And you may be seated.
A man once gave a great banquet and invited a lot of guests. When the banquet was ready, he sent a servant to tell the guests, "Everything is ready, please come." One guest after another started making excuses. The first one said, "I bought some land and I've got to look it over, please excuse me." Another guest said, "I bought 5 teams of oxen and I need to try them out, please excuse me." Still another guest said, "I've just gotten married and I can't be there." The servant told his master what happened. The master became so angry that he said, "Go as fast as you can to every street and alley in town. Bring in everyone who is poor or crippled or blind or lame." When the servant returned, he said, "Master, I've done what you told me, and there is still plenty of room for more people." His master then told him, "Go out along the back roads and fence rows and make people come in so that my house will be full. Not one of the guests I first invited will even get a bite of my food."
I love how that video imagines the parable of the great banquet as a big Indian wedding. If you've ever seen a big Indian wedding, we had one happen across the street from the church once, and they know how to make it a party. All right, I ask you to join me in prayer, a prayer of confession. Loving Creator, in the beginning you created and created and created, and then you called the whole thing very good. You made us with beautiful bodies, each one totally different and yet somehow all made in your image. Then you took on a human body and came to live among us. And so, God, we lament how we have not always valued every body like you do. We're sorry for all the times we've made someone feel unwelcome by choosing spaces, activities, and words that do not serve their image-bearing bodies well. Show us how to throw great feasts, Jesus. Help us learn to fling the doors open, set out more plates, and search out those who normally don't get invited. May we be a community that shows those around us what it looks like to follow a God who throws parties for the ones who are often left out. Lead us in your ways, Jesus. Amen.
In response to that prayer, I invite you to stand and sing with me as you are able. We'll be singing "As I Went Down to the River to Pray." Voices together, number 453. As I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall bear the starry crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, sisters, let's go down, come on down. Oh, sisters, let's go down to the river to pray. As I went down to the river to pray,
Good morning. My name is Angelika Dawson, and I'm chatting with you today wearing one of my writing hats, that of Communications Manager for an organization called Communitas Supportive Care Society. Some of you may be very familiar with Communitas because you work there, like Sharon McKeesey, Jeff Nickel, and myself. Or maybe you worked there in the past, like Helen Reimer, or Peter and Jane Andres, or Eleanor Neufeld, or Emmanuel Dengesi, or John Cheny, and hopefully I didn't miss anyone. Or maybe you've got a granddaughter who works there now, like John and Ruth Hogg. Or maybe you know someone who receives services from our organization, or maybe you've made a donation to Communitas, and if you have, thank you. Or maybe you've never heard about Communitas before, ever. And if that's the case, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Communitas today. Communitas serves people who live with developmental disabilities, mental health challenges, or acquired brain injury. We do that here in the Fraser Valley, all across Metro Vancouver and on the North Vancouver Island. And some of the services that we offer are 24-hour home living options. We offer day services, home share, respite, and much, much more. I am so grateful that we are talking about disability and inclusion today, and grateful that I was introduced to a story in the Bible that I confess I had never read before. Today, I have some fun things to show you. I have some photos and a short video, but first, I want to ask all of you, kids included, to cast down your gaze or close your eyes and put your imagination hats on while I ask you some questions. So do that. So here's the first question. Do you have anyone in your family, or maybe at school or at work, who lives with a disability? So by that I mean someone who might use a wheelchair or a walker, or somebody who needs help getting dressed or being fed, or maybe it's a student who needs some extra help with learning, and so they have an education assistant or an EA. If you know someone like that, I want you to bring that person to mind. Do you have a clear picture of that person in your mind? If you do, nod your head. Excellent. Good. Okay, keep that person in mind, but now I want you to bring your mind to the home that you live in right now. So imagine yourself walking through the front door, taking off your shoes, hanging up your coat, and then heading further inside. Maybe you're going to your favorite room in the house. Might be the kitchen, might be your living room, might be your bedroom. Imagine yourself there right now. Okay, you can open your eyes, but I want you to keep those two images in your mind, the person that you thought of and your favorite room in the house. Now I want to introduce you to my friend Alexander. I really like visiting with Alexander because he's got a great sense of humor. He makes me and everyone around him laugh. He loves his family. He loves to do all kinds of things, like go to the aquarium or go on train rides. And he really, really loves animals. This is a picture of him with Lucy, who is a therapy dog who visits him and his friends regularly. Alexander lives with a really rare condition. In fact, it's so rare, only 10 people in Canada have it. Less than 100 people in the world have it. It's so rare that it doesn't even have a name. It's just identified by some numbers and letters. Some of the ways that it impacts Alexander is that he is almost blind. Not quite, but almost. He doesn't have feelings in his extremities, so in his hands and his feet. So he has to be really careful when he pushes his wheelchair that he doesn't scrape up against a wall or a doorstop or something like that, because it might injure him and he wouldn't know it. None of this stops Alexander from living a rich and full life. This is the house that Alexander lives in, and it might be a little bit like your house. He's got his own room. There's a big kitchen, there's a dining room and a TV room, and there's a private bathroom. Alexander has housemates who live with him, Jadice and Austin, and they all get help from people who work there and who love supporting Alexander and his friends. But if Alexander had been born when I was born in the 1960s, First of all, he might not have lived. And secondly, if he had lived, he probably would have lived here. This is a picture of a place called the Woodlands. It's what people call an institution. At Woodlands, there were bars on most of the windows. The doors were all locked, and I mean like every single door, all the way through the building. So the staff all had to carry big keychains with them so that they could get into each room. Nobody had their own bedroom. You might have slept 10 or 12 or 15 people all in one room. The bathrooms were not private. You would go to the bathroom with somebody beside you, or you would take a bathroom in a room that might have 3 or 4 bathtubs all in a row, and you'd all get a bath at the same time. And then you'd sit in another room all day with no activities to do or anything for you to enjoy. So here's a question for you. What does that sound like to you? Prison. I heard somebody say prison. I have a friend who describes Woodland as a prison where you had to go, but you didn't do anything wrong. Does it sound like a home? No. The reason we're talking about this today is because people who lived with disabilities used to have to live in a place like this. They didn't have somebody like King David, who invited his friend's son, Mephibosheth, to eat at his table, to be part of his family, part of a community, someone who was kind to him, to treat him with love and respect. But today, things for people with disabilities are much different, and that's because organizations like Communitas got involved with something called deinstitutionalization. So there's your $64,000 word for the day. You can impress all your friends with that tomorrow. Deinstitutionalization. And all that big word means is bringing people, like the people you know, like my friend Alexander, out of institutions like Woodlands and into real homes, into community. We're going to show you a short video now that shows you what life is like for people living with disabilities today.
I mean, we didn't really know what we were doing so much either. But we had a good value base, and we believed in the concept of deinstitutionalization. And so we went for it.
Then the opportunity for relationships to develop and for people to sort of integrate, that was an important step in deinstitutionalizing. So visually, people were seen.
You know, if you don't see things with your own eyes, you create fear, and people were afraid. When we first started bringing people into community, they were the conduit for changes of hearts and understanding. They did it by their presence. They were among us, and they taught us how to accept the things that were dealt us.
Our task was to
make home, whatever their home would be.
And to do it in a way that we could all experience it. Even the people that were in institutions for so long didn't know what home was about.
The time that we're able to spend with each person, being person-centered, it's really, really encouraging. Getting a sense of a person's dreams for their life and putting it on paper and sitting down with them, okay, what would you like to do? Even in the next year, what are some desires or dreams or hopes that you have, and help to support them in that.
Seeing them for who they were, we had a health care plan that was established for each person to meet their needs and to make life as easy as possible for them.
In 10 years, I think we developed 8 homes and purpose-built from the ground up. The commitment that we could voice to families that we were going to be there for the long haul. And here we are 50 years later, still doing, still committed. Things have changed, but fundamentally, the philosophy remains, the value system remains.
I certainly appreciate the fact that I can come at any time. The only time I can't come is because Tanya is too busy doing things. And I must admit that I don't have the energy anymore to do what Tanya can do now in her home.
My way or society's way is not the only way. You've got to leave room for those differences, or we're all exactly the same. And what are we going to learn from each other?
And it's that freedom that we're all entitled to, that so many people were granted, right? We're not human because of what we do. We're human because of who we are. Those kids are going to experience a different life. They're in a better place. The community is in a better place. And I think we're all in a better place for it.
So I apologize for the sound quality there, but I hope the images helped you to see the difference between a place like Woodlands and the kind of home and the kind of life that people with disabilities have the opportunity to live today. I want to leave you with one thought. At the end of that video there, I wonder if you could hear what my friend Lori said. We are not human because of what we do. We are human because of who we are. God created each one of us as human and loves us just as we are. And that love gives us value. I think that is what King David recognized about Mephibosheth in our Bible story today. He recognized the value of Mephibosheth, who was his friend's son, whom his friend had loved, and I think David recognized that Mephibosheth was loved by God too. And that was enough for King David to say, I want Mephibosheth to have a good life, and I'm going to help make that happen. So earlier, I asked you to bring to mind a person that you know who lives with a disability, and to bring to mind your home. I wonder now if you can imagine that person being welcomed into your home, into your community. Because deinstitutionalization is more than bringing people out of places like Woodlands and placing them in nice houses. If that's all it was, then houses would just be smaller institutions. Welcoming people into our communities and into our lives, seeing people as created by God, being loved by God, having value no matter what their abilities, that's what it's really all about. So when you see your friends at school, or if you have family members or people at work who just need a little bit of extra help to live their full lives, maybe you can find a way to show some kindness, to become friends, to welcome them to your community, to your table. And remember that God loves each one of us for who we are. I'm going to invite Jeff Nickel to come up and share as well.
I have a page and a half here, but almost everything's been said already over the songs and stuff, but it's probably a bit more on a personal level. So here's my story. I've had the privilege of being a support worker at Communitas for the past 27 and a half years. As I had finished up being on staff here at Emmanuel, Pastor April, and then also Peter Andres and Eleanor Neufeld, who are both members here, and we're in leadership at MCC Supportive Care Society, as it was named then, all saw potential for me to work there, starting in Peter and Eleanor's areas of leadership in mental health and respite. But I soon found my way to be a full-time support worker in two of the group living programs, one for over 17 years, and my current one approaching 10 years this June, that we have here in Abbotsford. I am a bit of an oddity there, in that the average staff member only stays about 5 or 6 years with the organization. So that's why we need people like Sharon, who's head of our HR department, is very busy all the time. And there are only 25% of the staff there are male. And there are challenges to my position as well. I am one who needs to assist with a lot of personal care. Routine for some is a big part of the job, and that can be challenging. And it is shift work, morning, evenings, and nights. Working most weekends, and if you ask my wife how much you can ask my wife how much she likes my work schedule around Christmas time. She doesn't. Over that time I've been at Communitas, there have been opportunities to move up the staffing ladder. There have been others that I have even orientated in working in a group living home that have moved up to be part of the highest leadership positions in the organization. Peter Andres wrote down on a paper when Steph and I were getting married that I would be in his position within 10 years of marriage. We are approaching our 25th anniversary later this year. So. Once I had actually applied for a manager position, and I was part of one of two candidates that the hiring team had to discuss and pray about to make the decision. And Peter also was part of that group too. He seems to be really influential in my life at that time. In the end, the other person got the position, and Peter did actually have a meeting with me afterwards and said, you should have said this and this and this, but I didn't, but that's all right. They gave it to the other person, and she was a fantastic choice, and she stayed in that position until that program closed down here recently, and that was over 20 years that she was in that position. So I'm very thankful for all the managers and leadership people we have in our organization. But the main reason I do not and have not pursued that route of going up higher up on that ladder is because I enjoy being part of the front line, having time to make great relationships with the people I serve. Yes, I'm constantly aware of the power imbalance that I have in my support work with the people I serve. There is constant work in helping the people that we serve to develop, maintain, and grow their relationships with supportive families and friends. But as support workers, we spend the most time with them, hopefully helping them have the most fulfilling life as possible. As I reflect on my work as a support worker, there are not many jobs where when my family asks me about my day at work, I can share things like, after getting up and ready for the day, we went out to join a group for men's breakfast at a restaurant, then went for a scenic drive to a park for a lovely walk, then returned home, at which point my wife will usually say, who's home? For lunch. Then help the person served get ready for an afternoon nap, which I would so desperately want to. I so appreciate the joy the people I support have in the small things in life, like walking to Brandt Park, which is near the home I'm at right now, to watch the trucks go by on the freeway, because that person's dad was a truck driver in the past. And I'm thinking, I am so glad I don't commute, and there are a lot of trucks on that freeway all the time. Or the sense of accomplishment of completing a puzzle over and over and over again. I'm very happy that it's a puzzle that's no more than 60 pieces, which is something that I will always want to do anyway. And that's it. I love the freedom that the people I support have against some of society's etiquette that constrains us. I remember doing Costco shopping with one of the men I supported. He was happy to go off and enjoy the sample tables that are all around the building. I would go do my shopping. He would occasionally shout out my name to see where I was, and I would shout back like a game of Marco Polo in the swimming pool. And he was satisfied and happy to continue his taste testing. We can't seem to do that with our own families. And maybe that is one of the reasons why I wear Saskatchewan Rough Rider clothes, so my wife can spot me quickly in the Costco crowd. Although it does not quite work out so well when we visit a Costco in Saskatchewan. I tend to disappear there. The people I support can get me out of my comfort zone. For a period, one of the men I supported was encouraged to drink a small amount of alcohol to help him with some weight gain. Oh, a problem to have. Oh well. So he would go on a regular basis to a pub to enjoy a beer, a place that has not been part of my life routine. I was so pleased that he would be greeted enthusiastically by name. The staff there did not know my name because we would take turns as support workers to go and take this gentleman out to the pub. And by the time we would get to our regular table, our regular order, which for me was a Diet Coke, and for him it was a nice Molson Canadian, would be right behind us. What service? While the gentleman would walk around the pub, occasionally listening in on other patrons' conversations or watching a game of pool being played, I would be appeasing my discomfort a bit of being in a pub by taking time to prepare for the Sunday school lesson for the adults, lesson I was doing that coming Sunday morning. So, pubs are nice places, but it's still, yeah, it's not part of my life routine, but that's all right. The people I have supported have helped me to be a better parent, especially when my kids were very young, in areas like doing personal care and communication skills, as many of the people I support are nonverbal. My position helped me maintain a pretty normal life schedule through COVID. And for me personally, I am still learning how loneliness has become such a crisis in the last few years for so many, as I have not experienced that. I admire the courage that the people I serve have in being vulnerable to receive the help and the care that they need. They have to be patient and gracious as new staff constantly come into their lives to support them. Wow, that has to be tough to do. In conclusion, we have all been made in the image of God. We all have gifts to share with each other and have weaknesses that we need our circle of family, friends, and support and others to support us through. I hope and pray that when given the opportunity, we are able and willing to share those gifts that we have been given by God and to be brave and courageous enough to become vulnerable to ask for and receive help when we need it from others. And I know for myself, that last thing is something I'm still working on. So thank you for letting me share a little bit of my work this morning.
Great. Thank you, Jeff and Angelika. As you heard from Angelika, Helen Reimer was also a part of Comunitas, and Helen and her daughter, Irene Reimer, were asked to share today, and they were so grateful to get help from Vange Thiessen to write up their story. This morning, we got a call that Helen and Irene both tested positive for COVID this morning, so sadly, they can't be here. So my name is not Helen Reimer, it's Ingrid Schultz, and this is not Irene, but this is my daughter, Heather Lepke, who will be reading the part of Irene, and I'll be reading Helen's, and then Ernie Thiessen will be reading something at the end.
Disability has been a normal part of our family life for a long time. I was diagnosed with MS 50 years ago, soon after I graduated from high school in Rostern, Saskatchewan. This did not stop me from pursuing a career, even though it changed my choice from nursing to teaching. I worked in banking first to earn the necessary finances to go to SFU, and then completed my teaching degree there. I taught elementary school for School Division 34 from 2001 until 2016. Grade 2 was my best loved grade to teach. Having been the only white kid in my elementary, middle, and high school classes in India, I was in my glory teaching classes of almost entirely Indo-Canadian kids in Abbotsford. I loved it.
As Irene's MS progressed, it meant making some major changes. In 2011, as mother and daughter, we moved into a condo together. Parts of daily life and financial decision-making were impacted in new ways. We continued to make the most of our independence with Irene teaching and me volunteering at MCC. At school, Irene's mobility issues meant that it was time to hop onto a scooter to make her way up and down the hallways, much to the delight of her students. A second major adjustment came about 5 years ago when Irene had to give up her driver's license and make the shift from driving car and scooter to driving scooter only. I became the sole vehicle driver to functions we attended or volunteers' activities we did together.
I have never allowed my MS to become a barrier to my friendships, old or new. I'm still in touch with Rita, a dear childhood friend from my school days in Calcutta, India. Since retiring from teaching, I continue to get together monthly with 8 other retired teaching friends. With church friends, I love to eat and go to plays. I'm grateful for the rides and assistance I get from them. I scooter around Mill Lake every day, weather permitting, and relate to many people there. A friend often runs alongside me.
Disability has never been a barrier inside or outside our home. Whether it was MS or a developmental disability, regardless of whoever was living in our home at the time, we were all family. When our 5-year-old grandson Lee moved in with us for about 2 years, Margaret and Annie became his playmates, even though they were about 65 years older than him. He taught them the rules of street hockey and had great fun playing with them on the driveway, adjusting easily to the fact that they had their own unique language in which they communicated with each other and even with him. Together with all the fun activities were routine chores and gardening tasks that everyone learned to pitch in with. When we flew to Saskatchewan for visits with extended family, the twins, as we affectionately called them, often came with us.
There's so much more to Helen and Irene's story of accepting themselves and others with disabilities and helping everyone thrive. Helen was director of the Clearbrook Achievement Center from 1974 to 1994, the forerunner to Communitas as it is known today. At the center, Helen and her colleagues taught all the participants with diverse abilities, necessary life skills, crafts, and so much more. They learned how to do spool knitting, embroider tea towels, make sandwiches, and play table games. They went on many fun outings as a group, creating lasting friendships with each other as both staff and participants in the program. During the same 20-year period, Irene was working as a teller at a credit union before eventually becoming a loan officer, her pathway to her teaching career. For holidays, she loved seeing other parts of the world and was able to make many trips, even to World Conference in Paraguay. Helen and Irene are strong women. They don't just wait for things to turn out. They faced the death of family members, including their daughter and sister, Lynette, at age 14, Vernon, husband and father, and the twins, Margaret and Annie. They have faced health scares like Helen's falls and Irene's MS attacks, from which they each experienced more loss of mobility. They have grieved, overcome adversity, and gotten back up. Helen and Irene practice contentment in the midst of what might be seen by many as the unfairness of life. Their eyes and hearts are wide open for raising up and helping others near or far. They continue to volunteer together at the Clearbrook MCC thrift store, answering the phone, greeting customers, hanging and tagging children's clothing, and sorting hangers. They have volunteered at church throughout their time at Emmanuel Mennonite, whether teaching Sunday school, greeting at the front doors, or making blankets for MCC. Helen and Irene have learned well how to practice Jesus' answer to the question, "And who is my neighbor?" Far from walking by on the other side of the road, they call us to participate with them in noticing and loving those who carry an extra burden or who walk the streets with a disability in India or in Canada. Out of many inspiring stories, Vange has chosen the following one that demonstrates so well their lifelong attention to those on the street, both literally and figuratively. And here's the story. Helen first spotted Margaret and Annie while directing the program of the Clearbrook Achievement Center for those with disabilities. Margaret and Annie would walk around the Clearbrook neighborhood block regularly. One day, Helen took the initiative to go to their home and ask their mother about their adult twins possibly joining them in the program at the Golden Age Society. First one came, and then the other. They loved being there. After their mother passed away, their father found it difficult to look after them. That's when Helen and Vernon moved in with the three of them and became caregivers, eventually buying that house and loving the twins as their own for 30 years. In the Reimer household, the senior twins were no longer living with the labels of handicapped or disabled, but given the dignity of being equals in life and in death, of being individuals with their own characteristics and their own way of seeing things, valued members of Helen and Irene's family. How beautiful is that? Thank you.
Thank you so much to everyone who shared those stories. It was really powerful, and I learned a lot of new things as well. We're going to sing another new song. I have a bad habit of choosing new songs every time I lead music. I always look through our New Voices Together hymnal for songs that relate to the theme of the Sunday, and I just find so many great songs that I just can't resist. It's always so hard to learn a new song, but I hope you'll have grace for me and enjoy this new song. And again, we'll have the melody notes on the screen, and you can also turn in your hymnal, Voices Together, to 513. When hands reach out, and just please, pay attention to the words. I think they speak really beautifully to what we've heard today. We'll be singing verses 1, 2, 4, and 5. When hands reach out. And we'll have Janice play it through once as well. When hands reach out and
in touch with a friend whose son lives with a disability, and since his son's diagnosis, he has become quite a champion for him and for accessibility in their community. And he recommended this book to me, Amy Kenny's My Body Is Not a Prayer Request. I highly recommend it. I've only read half of it, but I already highly recommend it. And in it, she draws a direct comparison between the two Bible stories we heard today. So I wanted to share an excerpt. Jesus' description of the great banquet features poor and disabled people, much like the banquet Jesus' ancestor, David, hosts with Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth, who is lame in both feet and a poor outcast as a result, because disabled people were not permitted to enter the palace. Instead of dismissing him, David invites Mephibosheth to his table, which becomes a model for the kingdom of God. David quells Mephibosheth's qualms over being summoned, reassuring him, "Do not be afraid, for I will show you kindness. You shall eat at my table always." Always. Just as at Jesus' banquet, Mephibosheth is invited always. He is not cured. He is simply welcomed, just as he is, to sit alongside the king and share a meal like one of the king's sons. This is what the kingdom of God tastes like. It is not a tiny table with an exclusive guest list, but an expansive one. This banquet is accessible. I just thought that captured that so well, so I wanted to share it. Thank you all for being here today. I wanted to send us off with the words of Mother Teresa, so this will be our benediction. Love cannot remain by itself. It has no meaning. Love has to be put into action, and that action is service. Whatever form we are, whatever our abilities, whatever our resources, it is not how much we do, but how much love we put in the doing, a lifelong sharing of love with others. Go in peace and have a good week.